Okay, right. Well, my voice is quite loud anyway. There is not terribly a lot of us here, which we owe probably to the late hour, everyone being tired, but I would say that quality over quantity, right? So thank you for coming nevertheless, despite being tired after the whole day. I'm very, very happy that you joined, and allow me to say that CEE summits are my favorite community events. I'm myself from Central Eastern Europe, from Poland, so I kind of feel at home. It's lovely to connect with friends from Ukraine, all other countries. I see that we have people from Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Ukraine, Bulgaria, and other countries. Romania! I didn't know that. Hello, hello. Very happy that you joined. And I will share with you some simple basic insights based on my experience of work in the trust and safety team regarding safety. This will be a difficult topic. I will be talking about things that might be upsetting to hear and difficult. I will be talking about instances of abuse, but I hope that together we can create a kind of friendly, safe space in which we can share ideas freely and think together what can we do for our safety. I would like to start from a question like what makes us feel safe versus what makes us actually safe. And as an example, I will share a kind of personal story. So a while ago, there was like a wave of burglaries in my apartment. Previously, I wouldn't be too concerned about it, right? If I learned that someone wants to break into my flat, I would just say like, oh, no, bro, you don't want to go there. You will find only mess and beer cans, right? But I became increasingly concerned as those burglaries were becoming more and more frequent, and police couldn't apparently stop this. So my first thought was, okay, install better locks, install alarm, right? But someone rightfully stated that this will not fix the problem, right? Because as we advance our protection measures, the bad actors advance their techniques as well, right? So that person shared an interesting solution. They said that it is probably easy to operate for burglars in our apartment because people don't know each other. Like they cannot recognize if there is anything suspicious happening in the flat next door. So the solution proposed was, let's get to know each other. Get to know your neighbor, start caring about what happens in the flat next door. And this is what we did. We just connected with each other and started caring for each other. And after some time, burglaries stopped. Not just because they realized probably that people are more kinda watchful, but also because they have seen that it's not so easy for them to operate now that people care for each other and watch for their neighbor, right? Before, when they wanted to rob a flat, they were targeting that flat alone. And now they realize that when they want to target a flat, they are targeting the whole community. So this is perhaps one of the most important insights about safety, that to be actually safe, we need each other in a way. Why should we care about safety, right? When I'm telling my friends that I'm working for trust and safety team for the Wikimedia Foundation, some people are surprised. They are saying like, what, Wikipedia editors need a safety team? And I'm saying, hell yeah. And why is that? Well, that's because your work, what you are doing is extremely important. Wikipedia is a source of truth for millions and millions of people in all countries across the world, right? And many people realize that, and they care deeply about what stays on Wikipedia in a way. And unfortunately, many of those people who care deeply are bad actors. They are willing to go to great lengths to ensure that their narrative prevails on Wikipedia, including they are ready to hurt someone to ensure that, right? There are many, and we are talking about authoritarian governments, government-affiliated organizations, independent organizations like, say, ultranationalist groups, and single people. They are many, they are powerful, and they are very skilled. It is easy for them to hurt someone if they want to, right? Another thing to keep in mind here is that, like, when we edit, we usually do it from home, from a safe space anyway, right? So we don't think how easy something that starts there can travel and affect us personally. Unfortunately, I have seen very upsetting situations when something that started as on wiki dispute escalated to such an extent that an editor was assaulted physically for their own wiki edits. So it can happen, actually. And another thing that is perhaps even more upsetting is the fact that it's not just about us. Sometimes bad actors are so determined to hurt someone that they are willing to hurt their loved ones. I have seen a super upsetting situation in which bad actors trying to hurt an editor targeted their children, dogs their children, right? So it's important to keep in mind that threats can affect us physically and also can affect our surrounding. And general reflection about safety that I also wanted to share is that, of course, threat level varies depending on what we do, right? We can think that someone editing, say, politically controversial topics in an authoritarian country will face a different security environment than someone who edits topics about mushrooms from an EU country, right? But imagine that I have seen situations like this, exactly someone editing topics just about mushrooms in an EU country, and they also encountered a threat, actually, because there was another editor who was equally passionate about those mushrooms, and their dispute about mushrooms escalated so much that it started involving abuse that warranted intervention from the community. So even if we feel safe, some threats cannot be predicted, right? And the best way of mitigating threats is preventing them from happening, like in the early stages of COVID, right? When people were asking doctors, like, what do we do when we get infected? And doctors were saying, well, don't get infected, right? So this is a little bit similar with safety online. It's better to just prevent a threat from materializing than work to mitigate it later, right? So I was talking a bit about threats. We can divide them into two groups, threats to the people and threats to the projects. So threats to the people include harassment, which is a very broad term describing all activities that are aimed to upset, intimidate someone, right, like hate speech, threats, hounding, meaning like following someone on all projects wherever they edit, challenging them to discourage them from editing. We have external threats, meaning global events, controversial global events like conflicts, for example, that make people who normally wouldn't be interested in Wikipedia target editors of Wikipedia, for example, through reporting them to authorities in authoritarian countries, right? And then we have doxing, which I consider particularly important type of threat. Doxing essentially is revealing someone's real life identity without their consent. And why do I consider it so important? For two reasons. One, doxing is irreversible. Even if we manage to take down the content revealing someone's identity, the harm is already done. Because you know well, right, that something that happens in the internet stays there. Someone might have seen it, someone might have taken a screenshot, so the harm is already done and nothing can be done to reverse it. And the second reason is that doxing is the type of harm that makes people more vulnerable. And in my experience, in 99% of cases, when doxing happens, more harm follows, pretty much always. And you know, it's easier to target us then. They can find us, right, find our family, and so on. Then we have threats to the movement and to the projects. And it includes threats such as harmful content. This includes, for example, disinformation, understood as deliberately adding content that is aimed to mislead, right? Intent is important here. Not like someone adding content thinking that it's right, but adding it deliberately to mislead people, right? And then we have power imbalance or abuse of power, meaning community members using their position within the community, using their user rights illegitimately in order to, say, take control over the project, intimidate editors they don't like, right, and so on. Very simple tips how to prevent harm. It might seem quite obvious, but it's not. First is like being cautious about your username. I know that using your own real life name as a username has advantages because this way we show that we are transparent, we have nothing to hide in a way. But I have seen many situations in which editors were targeted by really horrible abuse, which could have been easily prevented if they just didn't do it, didn't use like their real life name or parts of that name as their username. But then, even if we use something completely different, say I have once known an editor who had a very creative username. It was like Blueberry Mayo, right? So you could think, how do you target someone? How do you find someone who is called Blueberry Mayo, right? But if they use this nickname on other social media platforms, like say Twitter, bad actors, if they are smart, can find them there and perhaps find more information about them in those social media profiles, right? Being cautious about social media is like a broader issue because sometimes bad actors are trying to go into Wikipedia spaces online, in social media, on Facebook, for example, and then based on the behavior of people they see there, they are trying to connect the dots and find like the Wikipedia identity of the person based on their activity in their group and their activity on Wikipedia. Another thing is like being generally careful in wiki discussions, because I've seen many such discussions. People probably don't realize that the person they are currently talking to will not be the only one who sees this, right? And in those discussions, people are sometimes revealing such details like where they studied, where they work, what is their hometown, and all this can be used by bad actors to identify and target them, right? And then there is a very broad advice. We deal with totally different people online in general who can act in unexpected ways. So it's usually good to use whatever knowledge we have about who we are interacting with to adjust our behavior accordingly. But let's assume that we were careful or not, and the harm still happened. What then, right? So first thing, it's always good to take a deep breath and just assess carefully what happened, what is the extent of harm, and what can happen next. It is also advised to not engage with the abuser further. Based on my experience, pretty much always in those situations, more abuse and more harm follows if we continue to engage with the abuser, right? And then it's good to document what happened very carefully, gather all the evidence that we can find, meaning like links to on-wiki diffs or screenshots of messages, if there are any, right? And once we do that, we can contact two entities that come for the rescue, meaning Trust and Safety Team, which I'm happily employed by, and the U4C. Trust and Safety Team, I'm not sure whether you had contact with it before. This is a relatively new team established some years ago with a clear goal to support the communities, protect the communities, make sure that they are safe and empowered to do their mission, to do their job, right? And this is important. There are a few things connected to this. The fact that we prioritize supporting the community, that the community is our priority, means that, for example, we are not doing content moderation at all, like some people from outside the movement sometimes think. No, this is entirely with the community. We just make sure that the community can do their job freely, right? We intervene only when requested. We don't do proactive moderation, proactive monitoring of projects, like looking for abuse, say. No, we have to receive a message from the community members stating what happens and requesting our intervention, right? We are also bound by the terms of use, which you all know, I'm sure. This means that even if something happens that is unethical and upsetting for someone, we might not be able to take action if there are no violations of terms of use involved. Now, I stated that we are here to support the communities. What kind of support we can offer? It's very varied and depending on the circumstances. So starting from sharing some kind of educative materials, but say like digital security training, but much more detailed and tailored to fit the community needs, We can do this in the form of sessions, trainings, for example, about how to protect yourself, say, from phishing, from educative materials to actions such as office actions. Office actions include, for example, conduct warning, which is a notice to the abuser that we see what you are doing, right? This is a violation, and if it continues, a stronger action can follow. Stronger action meaning a global ban, which effectively prevents the abuser from contributing to the projects further, right? In very dangerous situations, we can also connect the volunteers with the human rights team that supports volunteers who are threatened for their own wiki activity, right? If they are persecuted by legal authorities, we can connect the volunteers to the legal team. There are a few ways how you can contact the trust and safety team. You can find my presentation, it's linked in the program, so you can find those email addresses there. We use ca@wikimedia.org as our main address, where you can send reports about abuses, as well as any kind of question related to safety that you might have. Then we have emergency@wikimedia.org, which is dedicated to responding to imminent threats of harm. So if something feels like emergency, but it doesn't involve imminent threat of harm, it's better to use ca@wikimedia.org. Then we have legal reports for child protection concerns, and we have drt@wikimedia.org for concerns connected to disinformation, especially disinformation during critical events in the world, such as war or elections, for example. A few points to keep in mind regarding our investigations. All investigations are multi-layered processes which involve many parties, so they might be quite time-consuming, right? We also, for good legal and security-related reasons, usually don't share information about ongoing cases, which means that if you send us a report and you don't hear from us for a while, it doesn't mean that nothing is happening. It means that we are handling the case in accordance with our processes. I know this way it can be frustrating, but always we will reach out back to you to provide an update whenever we can. Then something that I already mentioned, this process can be accelerated if you share detailed evidence of what happened, right? Not just those diffs and screenshots that I mentioned, but everything you know and think is relevant is priceless for us because it helps us understand the case better. So always feel welcome to share whatever you think is relevant in the case. And then I would like to just underline again that we are bound by the terms of use, so intervening when we see clear violations of the terms of use, and we might not be able to take action in situations when something upsetting happens, but there are no such violations. And there is another entity that you can contact. To explain this, I will briefly mention the Universal Code of Conduct that I'm sure you all know, right? This is kind of document that describes a minimum set of guidelines of expected and unacceptable behaviors applied globally in a way. It was created because many communities lacked complete policies regarding unacceptable behaviors, for example, and many of them lacked enforcement bodies like arbitration committees, right? So expected behaviors in the Universal Code of Conduct are like good citizenship, mutual support, you know, it's not really a rocket science, it just means you should be nice to each other. And unacceptable behaviors described there is basically everything that I mentioned already, right? So harassment, abuse of power, content vandalism, which includes disinformation and so on. So the enforcement body for Universal Code of Conduct is called U4C, right? It consists of 16 representatives, 8 regional and 8 global. So it handles compliance about UCOC violations, performs investigations, and provides resources to communities that are aimed to make implementation and adherence to UCOC easier, right? So now it used to be confusing for the community members, like, okay, so we have both trust and safety and U4C, so who do we contact, right? I will be honest that this process is still being kind of clarified. We will soon have an update regarding that. But for now, I can share a kind of general rule of thumb that cases that are less severe in a way, but constitute UCOC violations can be sent to U4C, while cases that are more severe, more dangerous, can be sent to trust and safety team, right? So essentially we have two bodies that are quite resourceful. They are ready to step in to support you whenever you need this, right? And they can mitigate many threats that happen on Wiki, right? But neither the trust and safety team nor the U4C has something that you have actually. You have each other, right? My experience tells me that there is no protection against threats as powerful as a community of people who care for each other, who are there for each other, right? So this is the most important message that I wanted to convey, that you have us, we have your back, but you also have each other. And this is very important in fighting all kinds of threats. And on that bright note, I will finish this short presentation. And I'm very open if you have any questions about trust and safety or safety in general. Also, if you don't feel like asking those questions publicly, you can approach me at any time during the conference. I'm here exactly for you. This is my role here to listen to your concerns and talk to you. Oh, we have questions, please?
Thank you very much for your presentation. Is your department able to solve social media threats or safety issues with different platforms? And yeah.
This is a very good question, actually. We have seen several cases that were happening not just on Wiki, but also in social media, right? For example, we had a case when the abuser, after being banned on Wiki, continued harassing editors on YouTube and Facebook, right? So then we are able to contact those platforms and make sure that they start an accelerated process aimed at ending this activity, closing the YouTube channel, or banning that person on Facebook, for example, right? So we are able to do this. Of course, this is not our jurisdiction, but when we contact those platforms as Trust and Safety of the Wikimedia Foundation, they tend to be, I would say, more open to taking action and in a shorter time span, right? So yeah, we can do this, absolutely. And this is a good question because, as I said, this abuse often spills over to social media platforms, right? So yeah, this is very valid generally.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I have a question concerning the Digital Services Act and the obligations of Wikipedia being now a very large online platform, so regulated, together with social media as Facebook and Twitter. And there are these risk assessment reports that are submitted every year. To what extent the cases that the Trust and Safety team will receive and review will get to this report and will inform the policies under Digital Services Act of the foundation?
Right. Yeah, another great question. Thank you so much for asking. Actually, yeah, we have been working with appropriate institutions of the European Union on implementation of the DSA, right, for quite a while. We are in constant communication, and we have made several changes in the policy to address those issues. Your question was to what extent there is an impact of the DSA on our reports, right? If I get this. Yes. So we have made appropriate changes in the policies, and those policies have impacted the way we create our documentation and the way how our processes look like, in a way. Yes, so there is this impact. This was an important event. Thank you also for raising this, because it added like additional layer, I would say, to complexity of cases being handled, which are happening in the broader European area generally. Yes.
So, as I and many people in the community see that your decision making is not transparent, from our optics just block people out of blue and then explain nothing, as it was, for example, with the famous case of Fram, when nothing, then suddenly out of blue you blocked him and you explained nothing afterwards. Of course, community connected some dots and guessed the most probable reason, but that's a guess, not 100% explanation. And the same case was with Krasotkin, who was blocked unexpectedly for everyone and never explained. And more so, we guessed that he had a conflict with Let's Group, but you forbid Let's Group for explaining anything. But Krasotkin went to great lengths to explain his point of view. So his point of view was accepted by most people who thought that started thinking that you were not right in banning.
Thank you. Sorry? Thank you so much for raising this. Yes, this is a big issue. Of course, we are dealing with many very complex and controversial cases generally. So I understand that this sometimes can be frustrating, honestly, I do. Especially the fact that we are unable to share explanations, right? I understand totally your position. I probably would be frustrated too if I get no answer why this kind of big action was taken. As I said, however, due to legal and security related reasons, we are unable to share details, right? There is privacy in play. You know, we have to protect privacy of reporters. If we provide, say, an explanation, there is a risk that, for example, the abuser can connect the dots and learn that, I'm banned for this, so perhaps this was the one who reported me and try to, retaliate against the reporter. So we are legally bound not to share this kind of details. I, of course, understand that it might be very frustrating if you see a big action taken place and there is no explanation on our end. We unfortunately are unable to provide those explanations in most cases. However, to reassure you, as you said, there were situations when like a large part of the community disagreed with the ban. Yes, it happens. It happens. In this case, we have an additional layer of protection against the decisions that can be potentially considered wrong. This is a case review committee. Essentially, this is the body. When someone gets banned, in most cases, they get a chance to appeal a ban. So there is an independent body composed of experienced prominent community members who can review all the circumstances behind the ban as an additional layer of kind of protection against, say, unconscious bias. So there is an avenue to appeal our actions in most cases. We are unable to explain them, but I assure you that every action has to be approved by many entities within the foundation, and then there is still opportunity to appeal. I'm not sure if this completely answers your concerns. I'm very sorry that we cannot be more transparent, but this is for legal and security related reasons.
But then you fall out of the checks and balances, so you can, theoretically, you can block someone without a good reason, and no one will know, and no one could override it.
It's like we could never take an action without strong grounds, such as terms of use violations. So anytime the foundation takes action, the trust and safety team takes action, this is on the legal grounds, and when there are clear violations of trust and terms of use. So every action is due to violations of those terms of use. I understand that it might look like, right, that we provide no full explanation, so it can trigger concerns, but this is unfortunately due to the sensitive nature of most cases we are receiving, right?
So is there a body that can control you and review your decisions?
Sorry?
Is there a body that can review and control your decisions?
Yes, as I said, this is the case review committee, right? which is an independent body from the trust and safety composed of trusted community members whose task is to review the decisions made by the trust and safety team and the foundation at large. Please.
As I remember from Deca's case, valid users can share reasons which you send them, right? So if you mention in the legend of valid user why they revert, and if they would like to, they can show community why. Deca decided not to do it, but he promised and didn't. So still, the control is possible by request of user, right?
Yes. We usually provide the reasons, like we point to the parts of the terms of use that were violated, right, in the message. So it is possible for the abuser to share them, yes, indeed. But we typically do not provide a wider explanation. However, this is an important point of feedback. I will make sure to pass it to the rest of the team and discuss how we can respond to this kind of concerns better. Because as I said, I understand that this might be frustrating.
But you mentioned that there is this review committee who can check the decisions. Does it happen every time, or when somebody is questioning their decision?
Mm-hmm.
Because how can the community know that you make a wrong decision, or if you don't make any explanation? So if I asked 2 times a case what was the reason, because the subject had no idea why it was banned, and you said that you cannot share the information because it's secret.
Yes.
And nobody knew what happened. I don't know if I'm agree or not because I have no idea what is the reason.
Yeah, fair enough. I understand. We had a few situations like this when the community members were asking for explanation. So exactly because of the sensitive nature of the cases, we were unable to share details. However, yes, as you said, as I said also, there is this case review committee as a body that can be can review our decisions when there is an appeal. So the person who received a global ban has to reach to that body appealing the decision, right? So if they have no idea why they were banned, this is something they can do now, right? And the case review committee also won't provide information on the reasons behind the ban to the wider community, but they will independently review the case. So this is the kind of additional layer of protection. And I can assure you, based on my experience, that their review is very thorough, usually. So this ensures that no decision has been made mistakenly, in a way. Yes. Right. Oh, please.
I have one that is probably the overlaps between trust and safety and privacy. It's about temporary accounts, which were introduced in Wikipedia projects. Are they somehow related to cases regarding trust and safety that you reviewed, or it is only regarding the privacy legislation of the European Union? This is about temporary accounts and transfers. Because it's a concern for some people that now we have less instruments and ways to protect, for example, the project without now losing the IP, you know, of the editors.
Yes. This is another of the new developments in the recent years that had like a considerable impact on issues around safety in general. There was a big discussion around this topic. I wasn't the one coordinating on those issues, but I will be very happy to connect with my colleagues after the conference, and I will try to provide a more educated response. Yes, we can stay in touch after the conference, and I will be very happy to provide you with the response to that. Simply because I know that I can provide it with much better quality after talking to my colleagues who were involved in the subject.
Thank you.
Please.
So my question is this: I'm just registered by approximately by my name. If I register with my another director,
Mhm.
or just with my IP, and we did some sensitive information that does not accept someone, yeah.
Mhm.
And will it be the reason of my following of hard service by authority or someone?
Mhm.
And will, for example, admins can check me and can check my IP computer authorities.
You're from the Tajik community, right? I'm not sure whether Tajik community has any Czech users. Right. So I think that the IP check can be conducted only by the users with the Czech user right? And it can happen. Yes. Yes, right. So this is a concern, especially in jurisdictions where which are not democratic in a way, and state might be involved trying to pressure volunteers. We have had cases before when, for example, Czech user rights were taken away from someone when there was a suspicion that there is a security concern connected to these Czech user rights to other editors, right? So if you have this kind of concern, it's encouraged to report it to us, and then the level of threat will be analyzed by our team and appropriate action will be proposed. Thank you also for raising this one because it is a real concern, definitely, in certain jurisdictions, yes. So we didn't have much contact with the Tajik community before. I would be very happy to learn more about your community, about possible threats also connected to potential abuse of this kind of user rights so that we can provide you with adequate support and response. Yeah.
Do you cooperate with the legal department because there are many issues that falls into the field of both of you, like this company in Ukraine that impersonates us, and we reported it in 2020, and still nothing is done.
Yes, so actually Trust and Safety team is part of the legal department of the Wikimedia Foundation, and we do frequently cooperate with the legal team, particularly in issues which involve violations of laws, right? So in 2020, I wasn't employed by the foundation this year, so I cannot give you the full context behind this case. However, if there is still an issue connected to that, I would encourage you to contact the Trust and Safety team again, so then we can provide additional review of the whole situation and see if there is any room for potentially taking action. So if you if you feel that the issues are ongoing and they weren't handled appropriately so far, in your opinion, then I would like to invite you to contact us again with this issue, and we'll see what can be done. I can share my professional email address with you as well, so we can stay in touch in regard to this issue. Right. Thank you all so much for many questions, including difficult ones. It was a pleasure to address them because I know that work around those sensitive topics creates a lot of controversies, and I think it's important to talk about them, right? And share as much as we can. Do we have any more questions?
Okay, if question raised, I will contact you.
Sorry?
For many questions, I will contact the director.
All right, perfect. You can also find me at any time during the conference. This is exactly why I'm here for. I will also share my email address with you. I will be very happy actually to connect because, as I said, we didn't have much contact with your community before, and I would be super happy to change it. So, of course, thank you so much. I will be very grateful for any more questions, and if you ask them via email, I will probably be able to provide a much more elaborate response than currently, because I will be able to talk with others within my team as well. All right. If we have no more questions, then thank you so much for... Thank you so much for your engaged presence. As I said in the beginning of presentation, not quantity matters, but quality. And there was a lot of interesting questions. Thank you so much for them. And I'm looking forward to working with you and hearing from you, hopefully not about some dangerous situations or harassment, but generally. Right. Thank you all so much.